I didn't raise my voice when the HOA board, in their pastel polos and mirrored sunglasses, tried to hand me a notice telling me to leave my own land, not when they called me troubled veteran, not when they smirked about progress and property values. I just slid the brittle, yellowing 1927 water rights deed across the table and let their laughter falter like spoiled cream. Because some documents are louder than bulldozers, and mine was one of them. My name is Jake Morrison, 34 years old, Army Corps of Engineers veteran, son and grandson of men who treated water like scripture and land like a covenant. And when I came back from Afghanistan, ready to breathe easy on my pop's farm, I found tennis outfit Karens patrolling golf carts across my pastures and luxury developers pouring concrete into the throat of Willow Creek, the creek that fed my dam. The dam my grandfather built with his own hands and Army Corps blueprints in 1978, the dam meant to feed cattle in drought and slow the flood when storms came too hard. They thought I would fold, that a uniform folded in a cedar chest meant I was finished fighting, that I'd let my family's legacy drown in their ornamental ponds, that the sound of hammers and cement trucks would break me more than any roadside bomb. But I had learned something in war zones. Water doesn't forget where it belongs, and if you divert it long enough, it comes back with a vengeance. So I measured, logged, installed gauges, trail cameras, documented every stolen gallon, every concrete spill, every tree root suffocated by their schemes. They tried to drown me in bureaucracy, sending inspectors, citing me for phantom violations, declaring me a hazard, staging safety patrols at my gate, spinning local news into propaganda about an unstable veteran with a dangerous dam. But I dug deeper, into dusty courthouse archives where I found Pop's Army Corps covenant that made my dam federally protected, into older records where my great-grandfather's name shimmered beside senior water rights stretching back a century, into EPA statutes about Clean Water Act violations and criminal penalties for creek diversions without permits, into whispers from neighbors who'd been bullied, rezoned, taxed, and harassed until they sold their generational farms for pennies. Every page I turned was dynamite under their foundation. Every neighbor I spoke to became an ally. Mrs. Chen with her withered garden, Miguel Santos whose family's farm had dried into dust, downstream farmers whose ponds cracked like clay plates. All of us braided together like tributaries into a river. They tried intimidation, smear campaigns, even hired private security thugs who came in tactical vests to sabotage my spillway at night. I caught them on camera shoving concrete mix into hydraulic gates, handed them over to the sheriff, and when their president, Maggie Thornwell, went on morning TV in pearls, crying about our children's safety, I just smiled and prepped the spillway controls Pops had oiled before me. Because I had the numbers, I had the law, I had the flood, and the September rains were coming. So when dawn broke under bruised storm clouds and the federal EPA inspectors rolled in with clipboards and drone cameras, I stood at the controls, Pop's faded cowboy hat on my head and his journals tucked under my arm, and I opened the spillway gates at 25%, not reckless, not roaring destruction, but steady, calculated, perfect engineering, and the water sang its way back into its old bed, with a sound sweeter than any choir. It bypassed their fake decorative creeks, slipped past their half-built McMansions perched stupidly in the floodplain, restored Mrs. Chen's irrigation, filled Miguel's stock pond, and proved to every camera and every witness that the HOA hadn't improved anything. They had stolen a river, and I was giving it back. Maggie shrieked live on Facebook that I was flooding homes, but the cameras showed the truth. Their houses were dry, the creek was right where it belonged, and the only thing drowning was her story. Federal agents measured flow rates and nodded. EPA officials confirmed natural seasonal patterns had returned. Neighbors cheered with tears on their faces as the first cattails bent and the first heron landed. Even the judge, who'd once taken Rick Thornwell's campaign donations, couldn't ignore the avalanche of proof, fraudulent zoning changes, forged environmental assessments, insurance scams, all unraveling in real time. Within weeks, the HOA dissolved under lawsuits and fines. Rick was indicted for conspiracy and fraud. Maggie declared bankruptcy, and the McMansions stood half-finished, like stranded ships on dry land, while our creek, our stubborn, honest creek, became a protected corridor under federal trust. 6 months later, base returned to the water, farmers returned to their fields, kids swam where concrete mixers once stood idle, and Pop's dam was added to the Army Corps training manual as a case study in community-led watershed defense. I rebuilt the farmhouse, turned the back pasture into a conservation trust, and set up scholarships in Pop's name for students who want to study environmental engineering. Because the fight was never about revenge, it was about neighbors, about memory, about the promise written in looping pen strokes on that 1927 deed, to keep the water flowing for the sake of those below you. And now, every time I fill a mason jar from Willow Creek and set it on Pop's grave, I hear his voice in the rush of the current, steady, patient, certain, reminding me that water always finds its way home, and so does justice.